Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Hughes Harmony and looked out at the stars. His ship had been traveling through space for 3 months now. They were the first humans to go this far from Earth. Jake felt excited and scared at the same time. "Captain, we're getting something strange on our sensors," said Ryan Torres from his seat at the communications desk. Ryan was young, but very good at his job. He had been working with alien languages for years, even though no one had ever met real aliens before. Jake walked over to Ryan's station. "What kind of strange?" "It looks like a ship, sir, but it's not like anything we've ever built." Ryan's hands moved quickly over his controls. "The shape is all wrong, and it's made of materials I don't recognize." Dr. Lisa Hamilton came onto the bridge. She was the ship's expert on alien life. Lisa had spent her whole career studying what aliens might be like. Now she might finally meet some real ones. "Are you sure it's a ship?" Lisa asked. She looked at the screen showing the strange object. "Pretty sure," Ryan said. "It's moving in patterns that natural objects don't move in. And it's sending out signals." Jake felt his heart beat faster. This was the moment humans had been waiting for. First contact with alien life. "Can you understand the signals?" "Not yet, but I'm working on it," Ryan said. "The patterns are complex, but they definitely look like language." Amy Parker, the ship's security chief, came onto the bridge. Amy was tough and smart. She always thought about keeping the crew safe first. "Captain, should we prepare weapons?" Jake shook his head. "No. Weapons. We came here in peace. We're going to meet these aliens in peace." He had spent years training for this moment. Earth's leaders had been very clear. If humans ever met aliens, they had to try friendship first. "But sir," Amy said, "we don't know if they're friendly." "That's exactly why we need to show them we are," Jake replied. "Lisa, what do you think we should do?" Lisa looked excited. "We should try to communicate. Send them our basic math and language patterns. Show them we're intelligent, but not dangerous." Jake nodded. "Do it, Ryan." Ryan began sending simple signals to the alien ship. Numbers, basic shapes, and peaceful greetings that Earth scientists had prepared for first contact. The alien ship seemed to notice. It changed direction and began moving toward the Harmony. "There. Coming closer," said Ben Crawford from the engine room over the ship's communication system. Ben was the best engineer Jake had ever worked with. "Their engines are incredible, Captain. They're using technology I can't even understand." The alien ship was beautiful. It looked like it was grown rather than built. Its surface was smooth and curved, like a seashell. It was much larger than the Harmony. "Captain," Ryan said, his voice full of excitement, "they're responding to our signals. And I think I'm starting to understand their language." "What are they saying?" "It's basic, but I think they're saying greetings and peace." Ryan smiled. "They seem friendly, sir." Jake felt relief wash over him. "Open a channel. Let's talk to them." The main screen flickered and then showed the inside of the alien ship. The beings looking back at them were unlike anything humans had imagined. They were tall and thin, with long arms and large eyes. Their skin looked like it changed colors slowly, but they seemed calm and curious. One of the aliens stepped forward. When it spoke, Ryan's computer changed its words into English. "We are Zephyrians," the alien said. "We welcome you, new travelers. We have never seen your kind before." Jake stepped forward. "We are humans from the planet Earth. We come in peace. We want to learn about you and share knowledge." The Zephyrians. Skin changed to brighter colors. Ryan thought this might mean happiness. "This is wonderful. We love to meet new peoples. But you should know, we are part of something bigger. We belong to the great empire that rules this part of space." Lisa leaned forward. "Empire? Yes, Zephyrian said. The Cytherian Empire. They have ruled the galaxy for many thousands of vow. Your years. All peoples must join them, or... The aliens' colors became darker. Or what? Jake asked, though he was starting to worry about the answer. Before the Zephyrian could answer, alarms began ringing on both ships. Ryan looked at his screens and went pale. Captain, massive ships are coming out of faster-than-light travel nearby. Dozens of them. The Zephyrian on the screen looked scared. Its colors became very dark. The Imperial fleet. They have come. Jake watched as huge warships appeared around them. Each one was 10 times bigger than the Harmony. They were dark and covered with weapons. They moved into position around the 2 smaller ships like hunters surrounding prey. This is Admiral Vextar of the Cytherian Imperial Fleet, a new voice said over the radio. The computer's translation made the voice sound cold and cruel. Unknown vessel. You will prepare to be boarded. Your people will submit to Imperial rule. Immediately, Jake looked at his crew. Amy had her hand on her weapon controls, but Jake shook his head. Admiral Vextar, we are peaceful explorers from Earth. We wish to establish friendly relations with your empire. There is no friendship with the empire, Vextar replied. There is only submission or destruction. You have developed faster than light. Travel without our permission. This makes you a threat that must be controlled. Lisa whispered to Jake, they see our technology as dangerous to their control. Jake took a deep breath. Admiral, surely we can discuss this. We have much to offer. Each other through peaceful cooperation. The response was harsh laughter. Cooperation? You primitive species do not cooperate with the Empire. You serve it. You have 30 of your days to return to your homeworld and prepare your people for integration into our empire. If you refuse, we will destroy your entire species. The Zephyrian ship was trying to move away slowly. Jake realized their new friends were as scared of the Empire as they should be. 30 days, Vextar continued. Use them wisely. Learn to kneel before your betters, or learn to die. The Imperial ships disappeared as quickly as they had come, jumping back into faster-than-light travel. The Zephyrian ship remained for a moment longer. I'm sorry, the Zephyrian said sadly. We hoped you would be different. We hoped someone would finally stand up to them, but they are too strong. You should do as they say. Then the Zephyrian ship was gone too, leaving the Harmony. Alone among the stars, Jake looked at his crew. Amy was angry. Lisa looked shocked. Ryan was already working on sending messages back to Earth. N's voice came from the engine room. Captain, should I prepare the ship for the journey home? Jake stared out at the empty space where the Imperial fleet had been. Humanity had come to the stars with open hands and open hearts. They had offered friendship and been given an ultimatum. Yes, Ben, take us home. Earth needs to know what's coming. The meeting room in the United Nations building was full of worried faces. President Maria Santos sat at the head of the long table, looking at reports from Captain Morrison's ship. The Harmony had returned to Earth 3 days ago with news that changed everything. 30 days, President Santos said quietly. They gave us 30 days to surrender our entire planet. General Connor Hayes slammed his hand on the table. We can't just give up without a fight. These aliens think they can threaten Earth, and we'll just roll over? Secretary of State Paul Mitchell shook his head. General, you saw the reports. Their ships are massive. We counted at least 50 warships, and they said that was just a small part of their fleet. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, Earth's top expert on alien psychology, spoke up. The interesting thing is how they think. They've never met a species that developed space travel on their own. Every other race they know is conquered first, then given technology as slaves. So they don't know how to deal with free people, said President Santos. Exactly, Dr. Rodriguez replied. But that also makes them more dangerous. They see us as something new and threatening. Captain Morrison, who had been quiet until now, leaned forward. Madam President, I've been thinking about something the Zephyrian said. He hoped someone would finally stand up to the Empire. That suggests other species want to be free too. General Hayes nodded. That's useful information. But right now, we need to focus on defending Earth. Are we really going to fight them? Asked Paul Mitchell. Maybe we should try to negotiate some kind of middle ground. President Santos looked around the room. What kind of middle ground, Paul? They were very clear. We submit completely or they destroy us. There's no negotiation with people like that. Meanwhile, across the city at the New Geneva Research Station, Dr. Kevin Wright was working with his team to understand the alien technology they had detected. The Cytherian ships used energy sources that human science was just beginning to understand. Look, at these readings, Dr. Wright said to his assistant, Dr. Rachel Turner. Their weapons are powerful, but they're not magic. They follow the same physical laws we do. Rachel was studying the language patterns from the Imperial broadcast. Kevin, I think I've found something important. The way they talk suggests their military follows very strict rules. They do things the same way every time. That could be a weakness, Kevin said. If they always fight the same way, we might be able to predict what they'll do. Back at the UN building, the debate was getting heated. General Hayes had brought his top officers to present military options. We have weapons satellites around Earth, General Hayes explained. Our space fighters are fast, even if they're not as big as alien ships. And we have ground defenses that could make invasion very costly for them. But can we win? President Santos asked. General Hayes was honest. Probably not in a straight fight. But we might make them decide Earth isn't worth the trouble. Dr. Rodriguez disagreed. General, you don't understand their mindset. For them, this isn't about whether Earth is valuable. It's about control. If they let one species stay free, others might get ideas. Captain Morrison spoke again. There's something else. The Zephyrians seemed like good people who were forced to serve the Empire. If we fight and show it's possible to resist, other species might join us. That's a big gamble, Paul Mitchell said. We're betting the survival of humanity on the hope that aliens we've never met will help us. President Santos stood up. Let me ask you all something. If we surrender, what happens? To us, the Empire said we'd be integrated. What does that mean? Dr. Rodriguez had been studying this question. Based on their language and behavior, I believe it means slavery. They would control our technology, our government, and our people. Humans would exist only to serve the Empire. The room went quiet. Everyone understood what that meant. So our choices are fight and possibly die free, or surrender and definitely live as slaves. President Santos said. General Hayes nodded. That's how I see it, Madam President. Captain Morrison's communication device beeped. He looked at it and his face changed. Madam President, I'm getting a message from the Harmony. They're detecting ships at the edge of our solar system. Everyone in the room tensed. Cytherian ships? President Santos asked. No, ma'am. These are smaller. The signatures match Zephyrian vessels. Dr. Wright's voice came over the communication system from New Geneva. Madam President, we're detecting the same ships. They're broadcasting on the frequency Captain Morrison's crew used for first contact. Put them through, President Santos ordered. The familiar face of the Zephyrian appeared on the room's main screen. The alien's colors were dark and worried. People of Earth, the Zephyrian said. I am sorry to bring bad news. The Imperial fleet is gathering. They have called ships from many worlds. They plan to make an example of you. How long do we have? Captain Morrison asked. Perhaps 20 of your days? The Empire wants other species to see what happens to those who refuse to submit. General Hayes leaned forward. How many ships? The Zephyrians' colors became even darker. More than 500, including their planet-killer ships. The humans in the room exchanged looks. 500 warships was more than they had imagined. Why are you telling us this? President Santos asked. Won't you get in trouble with the Empire? Yes, the Zephyrian said simply. But some things are more important than safety. We have watched the Empire crush the dreams of 1,000 worlds. When we met you, we saw something we had almost forgotten. What was that? Hope. The Zephyrian replied. You offered us friendship when you could have tried to conquer us. You showed us that not all strong species become bullies. If you fight the Empire, you will not fight alone. Dr. Rodriguez was amazed. You're saying other species will help. Some will try. We cannot promise victory. But we can promise you will not die alone. The transmission ended, leaving the humans to stare at each other in silence. Finally, President Santos spoke. General Hayes, how quickly can we prepare our defenses? We've been working on contingency plans since the Harmony launched, General. Hayes replied. If we start now, we can have basic defenses ready in 2 weeks. Full preparations will take a month. We don't have a month, President Santos said. We have 20 days, maybe less. Paul Mitchell made one last attempt. Madam President, we could still try to negotiate. Maybe offer them something valuable in exchange for leaving us alone. President Santos looked at him sadly. Paul, what could we possibly offer that they can't just take by force? They have thousands of worlds already. The only thing they want from us is our submission. She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. Millions of people were going about their normal lives, not knowing that their world was about to change forever. The decision is mine to make, President Santos said, and I've made it. We will not surrender our freedom without a fight. General Hayes, begin preparations immediately. General Hayes smiled grimly. Yes, Madam President. What should I tell the people? The truth, President Santos replied. That humanity tried peace, but the galaxy chose war. Now we'll show them what happens when you threaten Earth. As the meeting broke up, Captain Morrison stayed behind. Madam President, what are our real chances? President Santos was quiet for a moment. Honestly, Jake, very small. But sometimes very small is all you need. And sometimes the most important thing isn't winning. It's showing others that fighting back is possible. Captain Morrison nodded. Then we'd better make sure we give them a good show. Outside, the sun was setting over Earth. In 20 days, that sun would rise on a world at war. The alarm sirens woke Mike Johnson from his sleep. As the chief of New Montana Colony, he knew those sirens meant only one thing. The 30-day deadline had passed, and the Catherian Empire was making good on their threat. Mike rolled out of bed and ran to his communications center. The small farming colony was home to 12,000 people who had come to this world to build a new life. They grew food for Earth and lived simple, peaceful lives. Now that peace was about to end. Colony Control, this is Johnson, he said into his radio. Chief, we've got massive ships dropping out of hyperspace, came the reply from Jenny Clark, who was working the night shift at the colony's sensor station. Jenny was a school teacher, but like everyone else on New Montana, she had learned to do many jobs. Mike looked at his screens and felt his heart sink. 6 enormous warships hung in space above their world. Each one was larger than their entire colony. Are they trying to communicate? Mike asked. No, sir, Jenny replied. They're just sitting there, waiting. Mike activated the colony-wide communication system. All residents, this is Chief Johnson. We are under threat from hostile alien ships. Please move to the underground shelters immediately. This is not a drill. Danny Rodriguez, who ran the colony's vehicle repair shop, was already on his way to the community center. He had been working late on a farming robot when the alarm started. Danny was good with machines, and he had a feeling they were going to need every machine they could get. "Danny," Mike called over the radio, "can you get our mining equipment ready? If they come down here, we're going to need something to fight with." "Already on it, Chief," Danny replied. The mining equipment wasn't made for fighting, but it could move heavy rocks and cut through metal. It would have to do in space above them. Admiral Vexstar looked down at the human colony with cold satisfaction. This would be the first example the Empire made. Other species would see what happened to those who refused to submit. "Begin the bombardment," he ordered. "Leave some survivors to spread the word about Imperial power." The Cytherian ships opened fire. Energy beams struck the colony's power plant and communication tower. Buildings collapsed in flames. People screamed and ran for the underground shelters that had been built for asteroid strikes, not alien attacks. Mike and his emergency team were in the command bunker when the first wave hit. The lights went out, then came back on as the emergency. Power kicked in. "Damage report," Mike called out. "Power plant is gone," reported Tom Walsh, the colony's engineer. "Main communication array is down. We're running on backup systems." Jenny was at the sensor controls, tears running down her face. "Chief, they're landing troops. 6 transport ships just touched down outside the main settlement." Mike felt anger rising in his chest. These aliens had come to his world, attacked his people, and now they wanted to finish the job in person. "All defense teams, report to your positions. Remember, we're not trying to win. We're trying to survive and make them pay for what they're doing." The Cytherian soldiers were tall and thin, wearing powered armor that made them look like metal insects. They carried energy weapons and moved with the confidence of troops who had never lost a battle. They had conquered hundreds of worlds exactly, like this one, but they had never fought. Humans before Danny had rigged mining charges to explode when the aliens entered the equipment yard. When the first squad of Cytherians walked into his trap, the explosion sent 3 of them flying. The others took cover and began firing at the buildings around them. "Got them," Danny yelled over his radio. "But they're angrier now." Mike was coordinating the defense from his bunker when he got a call from Sarah Kim, who ran the colony's medical center. "Chief, we've got wounded people coming in, but we also have something else. The alien prisoners from the first attack, they're trying to communicate." "Prisoners?" "The mining charge knocked out 3 of their soldiers. 2 are dead, but 1 is alive. And he's not acting like we expected." Mike made his way through the underground tunnels to the medical center. The captured Cytherian was lying on a bed, his armor removed. He looked different from what Mike had imagined. Smaller, more fragile when the alien saw Mike, he spoke in broken English. "Please not want to hurt you Mike was surprised. "You speak our language? Learn from your broadcasts," the alien said weakly. "My name Kexron. I am soldier, but not want to be." Sarah Kim was checking the alien's injuries. "Chief, I don't think he's like the others. Look at this." She showed Mike a device that had been hidden in the alien's armor. "It's some kind of control device. I think it was forcing him to obey orders." Kexron nodded painfully. "Empire controls us, makes us fight, cannot resist." Mike felt a chill. "Are you saying your people don't want to be soldiers?" "Many species in Empire slaves like you will be. Only Only the rulers choose to fight. This changed everything." Mike got on his radio to contact the other defense teams. All units, listen carefully. The Empire soldiers might not be our real enemies. They're slaves just like we would be. Meanwhile, in orbit, Admiral Vexstar was getting reports that confused him. The human resistance was unlike anything the Empire had encountered. Instead of fighting in organized formations, the humans used small groups that attacked and then disappeared. They used their own machines as weapons. They seemed to know exactly where Catherian troops would be. "Sir," reported his tactical officer, "we're losing more soldiers than expected. The humans are not fighting like civilized species." "What do you mean?" Vexstar demanded. "They use explosives hidden in their own buildings. They attack from underground tunnels. They sacrifice their own equipment to damage ours. It's single quotes chaotic. Vexstar had conquered 47 worlds personally. He had never seen anything like this. Double the ground forces. Crush this resistance immediately. But even as more troops landed, the humans continued to fight in ways that made no sense to Catherian military doctrine. Jenny Clark had organized the school children to carry messages between defense points using tunnels the aliens didn't know about. Danny Rodriguez had taught the colonists to turn farming equipment into weapons. The most frustrating thing for the Catherians was that the humans wouldn't surrender, even when they were clearly losing. On every other world, once the Empire demonstrated their superior power, the local population would give up. But these humans kept fighting even when their situation was hopeless. "Chief," Jenny called over the radio, "I'm getting something strange on the emergency frequencies. There are other colonies calling for help. The Empire is attacking multiple worlds at the same time." Mike felt sick. "How many?" "At least 12. Human colonies. And Chief, some of them have gone silent." Mike closed his eyes for a moment. The Empire wasn't just making an example of New Montana. They were trying to break humanity's spirit by attacking everywhere at once. "Get me a channel." "To Earth," Mike ordered. "If this is our last message, we're going to make it count." A few minutes later, Mike was recording a message that would reach Earth in several hours. Behind him, explosions could be heard as the battle continued. "This is Chief Mike Johnson of New Montana Colony. We are under attack by the Catherian Empire. They have superior numbers and technology, but we are not giving up. We want Earth to know that we fought. We want you to know that these aliens are not as strong as they pretend to be. Many of their soldiers are slaves who don't want to fight. The Empire rules through fear, not strength." An explosion shook the bunker, and dust fell from the ceiling. "We may not survive this attack, but we've learned something important. The Empire has never fought people who refuse to be scared. They don't know what to do when their victims fight back. If Earth is attacked, remember that. Remember that we showed them humans don't know how to quit." Mike ended the recording and sent it toward Earth. Then he picked up his weapon and headed back to the battle. The colony was losing, but they were making the Empire pay for every building, every street, every life. 3 days later, the message reached Earth. President Santis listened to it in her office, along with 11 similar messages from other human colonies. When it ended, she sat in silence for a long moment. Then she pressed her communication button. "Get me General Hayes. Tell him the time for preparation is over. The Empire has made their choice, and now we make ours. The war had begun." Admiral Susan Blake stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching the massive Catherian fleet approach the Titan shipyards. The orbital construction facility was humanity's most important military asset, and the Empire knew it. They had brought 200 warships to destroy it. Susan had only 37 ships in her first defense fleet. The math was simple and terrifying. But she had learned something from the colony reports that the Empire hadn't expected. Humans don't fight fair when their survival is at stake. All ships, this is Admiral Blake, she said into her communication system. Remember, we're not trying to win a traditional battle. We're trying to make them question everything they think they know about warfare. On the Hughes Ranger, Commander Nick Foster was preparing his fighter squadrons for launch. Nick had been a test pilot before the war, used to flying experimental aircraft that behaved in unexpected ways. Now he was about to use that experience against aliens who had never seen human creativity in combat. Listen up, people, Nick told his pilots. The enemy expects us to attack in formation, follow standard tactics, and retreat when we're outnumbered. We're going to do exactly the opposite. Lieutenant Patricia Lee, his wingman, grinned. So we're going to be completely unpredictable? Worse than that, Nick replied. We're going to be chaotic. The Empire's computers can't plan for tactics. That don't make sense. The Catherian fleet moved into attack formation with the precision of a machine. Admiral Vextar, commanding from his flagship, watched the human ships with satisfaction. These primitive vessels were tiny compared to his warships. They should surrender now, Vextar said to his tactical officer. Surely they can see they have no chance. Sir, they're launching fighters, the officer reported. Small attack craft, moving in unusual patterns. On his screen, Vextar watched the human fighters begin their attack. But they weren't attacking. They were flying in circles, loops, and spirals that made no military sense. Some were flying backwards. Others were spinning while they flew. What are they doing? Vextar demanded. Nick Foster was leading his squadron in what looked like a crazy dance around the Catherian ships. But there was method to the madness. Each seemingly random movement was designed to confuse the enemy's targeting computers. Ranger Squadron, break formation and attack individual targets, Nick called out. Remember, no patterns, no plans. Just cause chaos. The human fighters scattered in all directions, each pilot making up their own tactics as they went. Patricia Lee dove straight at a Catherian cruiser, fired all her weapons, then spun around and flew through the space between two enemy ships. The Catherian gunners couldn't track her erratic movement. This is insane, Patricia laughed over the radio. And it's working. The Catherian fleet was designed to fight organized enemies. Their computers calculated the most efficient way to destroy enemy formations. But the humans weren't using formations. They were using pure chaos. Admiral Blake watched the fighter. Attack with approval. All ships begin Phase 2. Random attack patterns, no coordination between vessels. The human fleet split up and began attacking from different directions at different times. Each ship captain was told to make their own decisions about when and how to attack. The result was a battle unlike anything in galactic history. On the UES Liberty, Captain Gary Miller was firing his weapons while flying his ship in a corkscrew pattern. Gary had been a civilian freighter pilot before the war, used to flying through asteroid fields and space storms. Now he was using those skills to avoid enemy fire. Captain, the Catherians are trying to surround us, reported his tactical officer. Let them try, Gary replied. They're expecting us to fly away from the trap. Instead, we're flying right through it. The Liberty flew straight into the middle of 6 Catherian ships, firing in all directions. The enemy vessels couldn't shoot back without hitting each other. By the time they realized what was happening, the human ship was already gone. Admiral Vextar was becoming frustrated. His fleet was larger and more powerful, but they couldn't seem to hit the human ships. Every time his gunners locked onto a target, it would suddenly change direction or speed in ways that seemed impossible. Sir, his tactical officer said nervously, we're not fighting a military force. We're fighting... I don't know what we're fighting. Explain. Their movements don't follow any known tactical doctrine. They attack when they should retreat, retreat when they should attack, and sometimes they just fly in circles while shooting at us. Vextar had fought many battles, but he had never encountered an enemy that refused to follow logical combat patterns. Increase firepower, destroy them through sheer force. But even overwhelming firepower wasn't working. The human ships were too small and too unpredictable. And worse, they were starting to damage Catherian vessels. Nick Foster had discovered something important. The Empire's ships were powerful, but they were also predictable. They always responded to threats the same way. Once he figured out their patterns, he could use them against each other. All fighters, listen up, Nick called out. The big ships always turn left when they're trying to avoid collision. Use that. Patricia Lee immediately understood. She flew straight at a Catherian cruiser, forcing it to turn left to avoid her. That turned its side toward another human fighter, who was able to hit a weak spot in its armor. Brilliant, Patricia said. They're so organized, they can't adapt when we force them to change position. The battle continued for 3 hours. Human fleet was taking damage, but they were also proving something important. The mighty Catherian Empire could be hurt by people who refused to play by their rules. Admiral Blake received a message from Earth during the fight. Admiral, this is General Hayes. Intelligence reports that other Empire fleets are having similar problems with human colonies. They're requesting reinforcements from across the galaxy. Susan smiled grimly. Understood, General. How many ships? Are they pulling from other areas? At least 1,000. Maybe more. They're treating humanity as a major threat. Good, Susan replied. That means fewer ships oppressing other species. As if summoned by her words, new contacts appeared on the sensor screens, but these weren't Catherian ships. They were smaller. Vessels, different designs, approaching from several directions. Admiral, her communications officer called out, we're receiving transmissions from the new arrivals. They're from different species, and they're asking permission to join the fight. One of the transmissions came through clearly. It was the Zephyrian they had met during first contact. Admiral Blake, this is the Zephyrian Resistance Fleet. We have brought friends. The galaxy is watching your battle, and some of us have decided to stop being afraid. Susan felt hope rise in her chest. How many ships? 57 vessels from 12 different species. We are not strong fighters, but we are tired of being slaves. The battle changed instantly. The Catherian fleet found themselves facing not just chaotic human tactics, but also ships crewed by species they thought they controlled. Admiral Vextar watched in shock as his own former subjects opened fire on Imperial vessels. This is impossible. Vextar said, subject species don't rebel. They don't have the courage. Sir, his officer replied, they seem to have found courage. The humans are inspiring them somehow. The combined fleet of humans and rebels was still outnumbered, but now the Catherians were facing something they had never encountered in 10,000 years of conquest. They were facing hope. Nick Foster coordinated his fighters with alien pilots who had never fought as free beings before. It was messy and chaotic, but it worked. The rebel ships learned human tactics quickly. B. Unpredictable. Trust your instincts and never give up. Ranger Squadron, this is Admiral Blake, Susan called out. Intelligence reports that the Empire is withdrawing ships from 20 other sectors to deal with us. That means 20 sectors worth of oppressed species are seeing reduced Imperial presence. Copy that, Admiral, Nick replied. Should we be concerned about reinforcements? Commander, we've already won the most important victory. We've shown the galaxy that the Empire can be fought. Everything else is just details. The Battle of Titan Shipyards ended 12 hours later. The human fleet was badly damaged, and they had lost 8 ships. But the Catherian fleet was also damaged, and more importantly, they had retreated. For the first time in Imperial history, they had been forced to withdraw from a battle. Admiral Blake gathered her surviving captains for a video conference after the battle. "Ladies and gentlemen, we just changed the balance of power in the galaxy. The Empire thought they were fighting one primitive species. Instead, they discovered they were fighting an idea." Captain Miller, whose ship had been badly damaged, spoke up. "What idea is that, Admiral? That freedom is worth fighting for, even when you can't win. And that sometimes, when you fight for the right reasons, you don't fight alone." The news of the battle spread across the galaxy faster than the Empire could stop it. On 1,000 worlds, enslaved species heard that the mighty Imperial fleet had been forced to retreat. They heard that humans had fought impossible odds and survived. Most importantly, they heard that other species had joined the fight and lived to tell about it. Dr. Kevin Wright was monitoring communications from across the galaxy when he made an amazing discovery. "Admiral Blake, you need to see this," he called from his laboratory on New Geneva Station. "What is it, Doctor?" "We're receiving coded messages from Imperial worlds. Dozens of them. The subject species are organizing. They're planning coordinated uprisings across multiple sectors." Admiral Blake felt a chill of excitement. "They're using our battle as a signal? More than that. They're using our tactics. Random strikes, unpredictable movements, chaos instead of organization. The Empire's military doctrine is falling apart because nobody's following the rules anymore." On the bridge of his damaged flagship, Admiral Vexstar was receiving similar reports, but from the opposite perspective. Rebellions were breaking out on 17 worlds. Imperial garrison forces were requesting immediate reinforcement. The carefully ordered structure of the Empire was beginning to crack. How is this possible? Vexstar demanded of his advisors. One small battle should not cause this much disruption. His chief strategist was studying reports from across the galaxy. "Admiral, I believe we underestimated what we were fighting. We thought we were crushing another primitive species. Instead, we were trying to destroy an idea that our own subjects wanted to believe in." "What idea?" "That the Empire can be beaten. Until now, no one has ever successfully resisted us. The humans proved it was possible. Now everyone wants to try." The most disturbing report came from the Zephyrian home world. The species that had seemed so peaceful and submissive had risen up and captured 3 Imperial bases. They were broadcasting messages of freedom across their entire sector. "Sir," the communications officer reported, "the rebels are using human languages mixed with their own. They're calling themselves the Free People's Alliance, and they're asking other species to join them." Admiral Vexstar realized that the Empire faced something it had never encountered before. Not just military resistance, but ideological warfare. The humans had given their enemies something more dangerous than weapons. They had given them hope. Meanwhile, back at Earth, President Santos was meeting with her advisors to plan the next phase of the war. The Empire would certainly return with more ships, but now humanity wouldn't be fighting alone. "Madam President," General Hayes reported, "we're receiving requests for military advisors from 43 different rebel groups. They want to learn human fighting techniques. Do we have enough people to help them all? Not with traditional military advisors, but we do have something else. We have people who think differently than anyone else in the galaxy." President Santos understood. "You mean civilians. People who don't know military tactics, so they'll invent new ones." "Exactly. Engineers, farmers, teachers, mechanics. People who solve problems by thinking outside normal patterns." The plan that emerged was unlike anything in military history. Instead of sending trained soldiers to teach alien rebels, Earth would send its most creative problem solvers. People like Danny Rodriguez, who had turned farm equipment into weapons. Teachers like Jenny Clark, who had organized children into an effective communication network. "We're not going to teach them to fight like us," President Santos explained to her cabinet. "We're going to teach them to fight like themselves, but with human creativity." The program launched within days. Volunteer advisors were sent to rebel worlds across the galaxy. They brought no weapons, no military equipment, just human ingenuity and the willingness to try impossible things. On the industrial world of Kethra Prime, mechanical engineer Lisa Brooks worked with local rebels to turn factory equipment into weapons. The Kethran people were natural builders, but they had never thought to build instruments of war. Lisa showed them how to modify their construction robots into mobile fighting platforms. The Empire expects you to fight with primitive weapons. Lisa explained to the rebel leader, a being called Vexon. Instead, you're going to fight with the tools you already know how to use. Within weeks, the Kethran uprising had captured the planet's orbital stations using modified industrial equipment. The Imperial garrison had no defense against construction robots that could cut through their ship hulls. Similar successes occurred across the galaxy. On oceanic worlds, human advisors helped aquatic species use their natural environments as weapons. On desert planets, they taught rebels to use sandstorms and underground tunnels for guerrilla warfare. But the most important victory wasn't military. It was psychological. For the first time in 10,000 years, the subject species of the Empire believed they could win. Admiral Vextar found himself fighting a war on 100 fronts, against enemies who refused to follow any logical pattern. Every time Imperial forces adapted to one type of rebel tactic, the rebels would switch to something completely different. "Sir," his tactical officer reported during their daily briefing, "the rebels on Silos 4 have started using musical instruments as weapons." "That's impossible. They modified their sonic arc tools to disrupt our communication systems. When we tried to jam their frequencies, they switched to interpretive dance to coordinate their attacks." Vextar felt like he was losing his mind. Dance? They're using dance to fight a war? The humans taught them to use whatever they have available. These beings are natural artists, so they turned art into warfare. The Empire was learning that creativity could be more dangerous than conventional weapons. Human advisors weren't teaching aliens to be human. They were teaching them to be the best possible versions of themselves, and to use their unique abilities in ways the Empire had never imagined. As reports continued to pour in from across the galaxy, one thing became clear. The war that had started with an ultimatum to one small planet had become a galactic revolution. The Ketherian Empire, which had ruled for 10 millennia through fear and overwhelming force, was being torn apart by something they had never encountered before: hope. The final battle began in the most unlikely place. Not around Earth or any major military target, but near a small trading station called Haven Point. Captain Jake Morrison, now commanding the warship UES Defiance, had been tracking Imperial fleet movements when he discovered something that changed everything. "Admiral Blake, this is Morrison," he called over the long-range communication system. "You need to see what we found." Admiral Blake's face appeared on his screen from Earth Command. Behind her, Jake could see President Santos and General Hayes. The war had been going on for 8 months now, and everyone looked tired but determined. "What is it, Captain?" "We followed a damaged Ketherian ship to what we thought was a repair facility," Jake explained. "But it's not a repair station. It's something much more important." Jake sent the sensor data to Earth. What they showed was a massive space station, surrounded by hundreds of ships from dozens of different species. But these weren't rebel ships. These were Imperial vessels crewed by enslaved beings. "Admiral," Jake continued, "this is where they bring the control devices, the things that force other species to fight for the Empire. If we can destroy this facility, we can free thousands of Imperial soldiers." Dr. Elena Rodriguez, who was monitoring the conversation from Earth, understood immediately. "Captain, Are you saying that most of the Empire's military is made up of mind-controlled slaves? That's exactly what I'm saying, Doctor. We captured more control devices during recent battles. Dr. Wright has been studying them. The Empire only has a few thousand actual Cytherian soldiers. Everyone else is being forced to fight. President Santos leaned forward. How many ships are at this station? Over 800, ma'am. If we can free those crews, the Empire's military power collapses overnight. Admiral Blake looked grim. What kind of defenses are we talking about? Heavy. This is obviously one of their most important facilities. But Admiral, there's something else. We're not the only ones who found this place. Jake switched his display to show the space around the station. Ships were arriving from all directions. Rebel fleets from across the galaxy were converging on Haven Point. It looks like every free species in the galaxy had the same idea, Jake said. This is our chance to end the war in one battle. The largest. Rebel fleet was led by the Zephyrians, now commanded by Kexron, the former Imperial soldier who had been freed during the battle at New Montana. His ship, the Free Wind, carried a crew of liberated beings from 12 different worlds. Captain Morrison. Kexron's voice came over the communication channel. The Free People's Alliance is ready to support your attack. We have 300 ships from 47 species. Jake felt amazed. 8 months ago, humanity had been alone, against the Empire. Now they were part of an alliance that spanned the galaxy. Acknowledged, Commander Kexron. What's our combined strength? 412 ships total, reported Admiral Blake from Earth. The Empire has about 600 defending the station. We're still outnumbered, but not as badly as we used to be. The strategy meeting took place on Jake's ship, with representatives from dozens of species participating by video link. The plan they developed was typically human in its creativity and chaos. We're not going to try to fight our way through their defenses, Admiral Blake explained. Instead, we're going to convince their defenses to join us. Commander Lisa Brooks, who had become an expert in fighting alongside alien allies, took over the briefing. Most of the ships defending that station are crewed by enslaved beings. We're going to broadcast the frequency that disables their control devices. Dr. Wright had discovered the frequency by studying dozens of captured control devices. The signal will free any enslaved being within range, he explained. But we have to get close enough for it to work, and the Empire will try to stop us. The plan was complex but elegant. The rebel fleet would attack in waves, each wave getting closer to the station. When they were in range, they would broadcast the liberation signal. The freed Imperial ships would then join the attack on their former masters. It's going to be chaotic, Admiral Blake warned. Newly freed beings might not know who to trust or what to do. We'll need to be ready to help them. Captain Morrison smiled. Admiral, chaos is what humans do best. The battle began. At dawn, Galactic Standard Time, the Imperial fleet moved to intercept the rebels in perfect formation, just as they had for 10,000 years. But this time, their enemies were ready for them. Nick Foster, now a squadron commander, led the first wave of fighters. His job was to get close enough to the Imperial ships to begin broadcasting the liberation signal. Remember, Nick told his pilots, we're not trying to destroy these ships. We're trying to save the people inside them. The first broadcasts had immediate effects. On 3 Imperial cruisers, the control devices shut down simultaneously. The enslaved crews, suddenly free for the first time in years, stopped fighting and began trying to understand what was happening. This is the Cytherian cruiser Sword of Dominion, came a confused voice over the communication channels. We ... We are no longer under Imperial control. What should we do? Commander Kexron responded immediately. This is the Free People's Alliance. You are free now. You can choose to keep fighting for the Empire, or you can join us in fighting for your own freedom." The response was immediate. "We choose freedom." One by one, Imperial ships began switching sides as the liberation signal reached them. But the core of the fleet, crewed by actual Catherian soldiers, fought back desperately. Admiral Vextar commanded the defense from the control station itself. He watched in horror as his fleet turned against him. "This is impossible," he said to his remaining officers. "How can they corrupt our forces so quickly?" "Sir," his tactical officer replied, "they're not corrupting anyone. They're freeing people who never wanted to fight for us in the first place." The battle raged for hours. Ships that had been enemies moments before were now fighting side by side. The Imperial defense collapsed not through military defeat, but through liberation. Captain Morrison brought the UES Defiance alongside the control station for the final assault. "All teams, prepare for boarding action. Remember, we are here to destroy the control systems, not to kill people." The boarding party included humans, Zephyrins, and members of 6 other species. They fought through the station's corridors together, united by their shared desire for freedom. The final confrontation came in the station's central control room. Admiral Vextar stood alone, his remaining officers having surrendered or fled. He looked at the mixed group of humans and aliens who had defeated his empire. "You don't understand what you've done," Vextar said. "The Empire brought order to the galaxy. Without us, there will be chaos." Captain Morrison stepped forward. "Admiral, we've seen your order. It's built on slavery and fear. We think the galaxy can do better. And if you're wrong, if the galaxy tears itself apart without Imperial control." Jake looked around at his alien allies, then back at Vextar. "Then we'll deal with those problems together, as free people." That's what free people do. Dr. Reich and his team worked for hours to safely shut down the control systems. As each network went offline, more enslaved beings across the galaxy felt the control devices deactivate. The Empire's hold on its subjects vanished in a matter of hours. The war ended not with a final battle, but with a galactic celebration. On thousands of worlds, beings who had been slaves for generations tasted freedom for the first time. President Santos addressed the galaxy from Earth a week later. "The Catherian Empire chose to rule through force," she said. "The Free People's Alliance chooses to work together through cooperation. We invite all species to join us in building a galaxy based on freedom, not fear." The response was overwhelming. Within months, the Free People's Alliance had grown to include over 300 species. They established a new government based on voluntary cooperation rather than forced submission. Captain Morrison found himself appointed as the first human ambassador to the Galactic Council. On his first day, he met with representatives from across the galaxy in a space station built where the Empire's control facility had once stood. "Ambassador Morrison," said the Zephyrian representative, "we have a question. Your species could have tried to replace the Empire to become the new rulers of the galaxy. Why didn't you?" Jake thought about the question for a moment. "Because that's not who we are. Humans didn't fight to conquer the galaxy. We fought so that everyone could be free to choose their own path." The Catherine representative spoke up. "But how do we make sure something like the Empire never rises again?" "We stay vigilant," Jake replied. "We help each other. And we remember that freedom isn't something you win once and keep forever. It's something you have to choose every day." 5 years later, Dr. Lisa Hamilton stood in her laboratory on New Geneva Station, now the center of galactic scientific cooperation. She was working with researchers from 40 different species on projects that would benefit everyone. Outside her window, she could see ships from across the galaxy docking at the station. Humans, Zephyrians, Catherines, and dozens of other species worked together in ways that would have been impossible under the Empire. Her assistant, A young Zephyrian named Veltar brought her the latest report from the exploration fleets. Doctor Hamilton, we've made contact with 3 new species in the Outer Rim. They're asking about joining the Alliance, Lisa smiled. What did we tell them? The same thing we tell everyone. That the Alliance is open to all species who choose freedom over domination, cooperation over conquest. And what did they say? They want to know more about these humans who gave up the chance to rule the galaxy just to make sure everyone could be free. Lisa looked out at the stars, thinking about how far they had all come. Humanity had tried peace, the Empire had chosen war, and the galaxy had chosen freedom. That it wasn't a perfect solution. There were still conflicts, still problems to solve. But now they faced those challenges together, as free beings working toward common goals. The greatest victory hadn't been military. It had been proving that cooperation was stronger than conquest, that hope was more powerful than fear, and that sometimes the most important thing you can do is show others that fighting back is possible. The galaxy would never be the same. And that was exactly what humanity had hoped for.